So, welcome back to the woods. I think the last time you saw these particular pieces of timber, I was splitting them with wooden wedges in a very traditional way, trying to get halves. And I'm back today to continue the process. It's been a long, dry summer. It's now early September, and these trees were felled in March. And I kept the bark on the logs to try and prevent them from shaking, from splitting too much once they'd been split in half. And unfortunately, because the summer was so dry, as we know, it's been an incredible summer, these logs and the bark on them has adhered quite badly. So it's been quite a lot of work to remove the bark, to scrape it off with sharp edges. But we're now at the stage where I can think about the sort of final finish for each of these timbers. And the point of this is not to produce an immaculately planed piece of timber, because if we wanted that, we would simply throw it through a wood mill and it would saw it in a perfect half. What we're trying to do here is to represent the Neolithic in a modern building. And so we've got our lovely split grain, which you saw previously in the woods when I was using wedges. And what we're going to try and do now is not remove all of that with sharp tools, but we're going to take off the sort of bits which are kind of slightly split and are lifting. And we're going to use things like this. This is a polished stone adze made by James Dilley, an experimental archaeologist, known him for many years. And he's produced these lovely tools for me to continue this job. It's quite a lengthy process. Each polished stone adze head has been bound with rawhide onto the stem of a tree with a branch attached. You can see here that this is a natural form. The difficulty of finding this shape in the woods is much harder than you might think, because actually this angle is critical to producing a good working tool. If this bit is too acute, it's very difficult to actually use this tool. So finding the right angle in the woods is almost like finding hen's teeth. You can wander through the woods for many hours and find very few of these shapes which are at just the right angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on these timbers and hopefully run you through the process, and you'll hopefully understand the sheer levels of work involved in the Neolithic, from taking a whole tree standing in the woods to splitting it and to then shaping it to a form that we want. Okay, let's get cracking. I have to apologise for the road noise. The timbers have been placed in a sort of area off the road, but quite close to the road, so apologies for any car noise. So here we go. We've got our polished adze. It's really important, of course, that we're not going to swing it into our legs. That would be very bad. And also I'm going to have to be working with the grain. So essentially, to give you an idea, the angle of attack on this tool is quite steep, far steeper than a steel tool. And I'm just going to sort of get a feel for these tools because they're new to me. And we'll start working some of these rougher areas off this split face. Now, as I said, the point of this is not to make an immaculate surface. We could do that with saws, but of course what we're trying to do is replicate the Neolithic. And in order to do that, we're going to use the tools that they would have used. And you'll see already, I'm not swinging like a wild man. It's quite carefully controlled, because what I'm trying to do is just take off the timber that we don't really want there. Most of it is great. It's a naturally split grain and it's lovely. So I'm not trying to sort of destroy the character of the wood. I'm just trying to make sure that any sort of tails of split timber are gone. And as importantly, when people run their hands over these colonnades in a few months' time in the finished building, they're not going to get horrific splinters and things. So I'm working carefully. Now, although these tools have been polished to quite a sharp, honed edge, it's nowhere near as sharp as a steel tool, for example. And you can see, being reasonably careful with the tool, what I don't want to do is obviously break it. It's been a huge amount of work to produce this tool by James. And the angles of attack, the way you use it, are very different to a metal tool, a steel tool. So I'm just taking it gently, and what I'm trying to focus on is producing nice little scallops where the wood has been removed with nice feather edges. This is not about speed and getting the job done quickly. This is about doing it right. What you get, as you can see here, these lovely scallops appearing. As I say, I'm going to say this a lot, I'm not trying to dress the whole surface. This is perfect. This is beautifully split grain. There's no point in me trying to work that. There's nothing wrong with it. So just any other areas, just going to give a touch with the adze. Sometimes you have to change around, change to suit the grain. But this sound, you know, this is my job. I marvel sometimes. All I can hear, apart from my voice and the occasional car, is the sound of a stone tool on wood. And when I pause, the birds in the trees. Not to say it's not incredibly hard work, because it is. But there's something genuinely real about it. This is what our ancestors did for hundreds of thousands of years with stone tools, hewing timber, shaping things. And obviously by the Neolithic period, it's an art form. They are producing incredible things. You think of the timber frames and structures that must have been in place to produce the megalithic monuments we're so familiar with. Well, this is how they did it. I'm sure you can hear my breathing increasing. Good tools, James, well done. These are good. These are working nicely. The sun comes out, the world is good. It's an interesting process, really. I'm not sure if I would describe it as meditative, but nevertheless, every single time you swing this adze, you've got to think really carefully about the angles and the weight. And so, if nothing else, it gives you no time to think about anything else. I'm kind of talking on autopilot because my brain is focusing on each and every adze blow. Definitely requires not just physicality but mental power to do this well, especially for any period of time. I mean, you know, this is quite a small task in the grand scheme of things. If this was my life as a Neolithic carpenter, goodness me, I'd be efficient and my finish would be better than this. But I'm not. And the whole point of doing these things is to try and get an insight into what those people experienced and the issues and problems they faced, and to understand, really, again, the story of my career, to understand and appreciate the level of sophistication in the past. As you can see, at no point have I ugged or dragged my knuckles. I'm using the tools they would have used, and I think I'm using them in a way that they would have used them. And this is a precision craft, precision skill. Just like with the wooden wedges, with a lot of knowledge, a huge amount of hand-eye coordination that's developed over time, and this is the result.